Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
I've been going out with a girl, her name is Julie, but last night she said to me when we were watching telly.
But it's a fascinating question. It's a beautiful illustration of how low we've been brought, isn't it? Name a prominent British politician who would attack a British diplomat to curry favour with a foreign leader. Apart from Nigel Farage, of course, who's doing it today. 0345 6060 973. Ross is in Bromley. Ross, what would you like to say?
Good morning, James. I can't really answer that question that you've just...
I don't think anyone can, Ross, but I've got 10 minutes to be disproved.
Right. Well, what I have called in to say is that the United Kingdom should really be aware of its own status in the world, and should really, and as an American who's lived in the United Kingdom for several years, I'm British and American, so I don't really particularly have a dog in this fight. I don't consider myself to be particularly patriotic or anything like that. But the UK is essentially a vassal state of the UK in terms of its political and economic and military power.
So it's a vassal state. The UK is a vassal state of the UK?
Of the US. The United States.
Oh, sorry, you misspoke. That's all.
Yeah.
Do you think so? Yeah. I don't like this language, vassal state and slaves and oppression. But did you think?
I didn't say.
No, I know you.
I didn't say slave.
No, but I think Rees-Mogg earlier said that vassal and slave are very similar words, and he's kind of right. But I don't think we are a vassal state of America. We're not the heavy hitters that we used to be. Most people, I mean, Rees-Mogg and his friends claim that we're a vassal state of the European Union. I think we're just a major world power, but not as major as we used to be. And economically, we're probably stronger than we are militarily.
Okay, you can believe that, but we have a huge amount of debt. We have very little power in terms of the actual changes of the economic sort of like waves, if you will, of the world.
I do know. I don't think I disagree with you, but I'm bridling in a patriotic fashion at your analysis, Ross. Partly because you're American. I know you've got a foot in both camps, but you're saying Britain is a much smaller player than you realise, and I'm going, I know he's right, but I don't like it. I'm going to stop.
Well, look, okay. So let's just. So I'll give you the point that I'll give you the point that maybe the UK has more power or more influence than it actually believes that it thinks that it does, or it does actually have it. But don't you think it should be sort of we should incorporate better language when we're talking about Trump and the administration and things like that? You refer to him as sort of a coterie of criminals that surround him or something like that.
Yeah, but that's like, just a fact.
The guy who's he's an egomaniac. Like,
but he's had two campaign managers. Well, this is a fascinating position, and it's one that I encounter quite a lot. You think we should stop telling the truth for fear of offending the man whose campaign manager is in jail?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a view. I think it's a view, but you know where that leads. Orwell nailed it.
Oh.
Didn't he? When he said the party ordered you to ignore the evidence of your own eyes and ears. It was the party's final, most terrible command. And here you are on national radio.
If you're really that worried about Trump being this Orwellian figure, then you're obviously undercutting your own argument, because people like you.
But you just literally told me to stop telling the truth.
No, James. People like you will also say that
people
Trump
like
is an idiot, doesn't know what he's doing.
People like me.
Yeah, people like you. Yeah, people
who tell the truth. Mate, you can't rewind it. You can't undo it. You're on national radio saying you should stop telling the truth for fear of offending a man who has publicly confessed to sex crime.
I think I'm telling the truth. So, I mean, just pick your poison, I suppose.
Is Paul Manafort in jail or not?
Yeah, he's in jail, yeah.
I can't believe you just said that on the radio. You should be really careful about what you say. You might upset Donald Trump. You're laughing at yourself. And I suspect you're not bright enough to realise.
Probably not, no. But anyway, no.
10:54 is the time, and there it is, in a nutshell. Don't say that he's surrounded by a coterie of criminals. Don't say that. Don't say that. It's not fair. You might offend him. You're a vassal state of the United States. You need to know your place. Is this dude in jail? Well, yes. That's why. I'm not exaggerating when I say that it's an assault upon observable reality now. Brexit and Trump combined survive and persist precisely because people are now saying, don't look at the facts. Ignore the evidence of your own eyes and ears. Trump himself has stood up in public and done exactly what Ross wants me to do. And say, don't believe your eyes, believe what I tell you. And there you have someone relatively sensible sounding, actually endorsing the idea that we shouldn't tell the truth anymore because it might upset the American president.
David's called on this from Coventry. Hi, David.
Hello.
Will it happen? Could it happen?
Well, I have a question for you. Assume that we leave on the 31st of October.
Yeah.
What will happen on the 1st of November?
I don't know.
Rhetorical question, but let me answer it.
Okay.
Absolutely nothing. We will carry on, and I've looked at this from the point of view of common sense and logic. Why would Angela Merkel say to her motor manufacturers who sell 20% of their luxury cars here in Great Britain, oh, you can't sell cars to Britain anymore because we don't like them anymore? Or the Spanish government say to their tomato growers, apparently we get about 80% of our tomatoes from Spain, oh, you can't sell your tomatoes to Great Britain anymore.
So what?
You'll have to find
So what do you think
else
will happen? We'll still have all of that trade. We'll just have it on different terms. Is that what you're saying?
I think until we get sorted out and the dust settles, we will carry on as we are. I am quite certain that the EU, Great Britain, and the Irish government will not have gangs of builders on the border ready to erect customs posts on the 1st of November.
So even though the European Union has said countless times there is no transition period without a withdrawal agreement, you say that's just sound and fury.
It defies logic. It defies common sense. And politicians, there's loads of bluff and bluster and rhetoric and so on and so forth. But the bottom line is they're not going to deliberately harm their own people. And by
we are
trying to hurt... Well, no, we're not.
Hang on.
That's a matter of opinion.
Jeremy Hunt has said he would.
No, but that's a matter of opinion.
No, he said he would. He said he would look... No, it's not a matter of opinion. He has said... I will look the owners of family businesses in the eye and say they should be prepared to see their companies go bust to make sure that the political act of a no-deal Brexit happens. That is essentially what Jeremy Hunt said yes to when he was asked that question on Andrew Marr's programme. That is a politician saying, I am prepared to say to people, I'm not just here when things harm you, I'm prepared to make decisions that will harm you. That is a really astounding thing for a politician to say.
But he has expressed an opinion that harm would occur, and that is only an opinion. We don't know until we get there. Your opinion, my opinion.
But we do know. But we do know. But we do know, don't we, that uncertainty has already damaged our economy and already put businesses in a difficult position. And we do know that having a free trade deal like the one we have at the moment is advantageous to many thousands of businesses and families in this country, and that no deal leaves us with many question marks around what that situation would be. You know that at the very least, it surely, David, you would accept that at the very least it is a fact, not an opinion. It is a fact that uncertainty is damaging and will continue to be damaging.
Is it the same as the facts that we were given?
Answer my question before you throw another one in.
No, but is it the same as the facts that we were given before the referendum?
No, I'm asking you. I'm not putting numbers on it. I'm asking you whether you think a free trade agreement such as the one we have now, with all of the certainties and the flow of trade that exists, whether that is more advantageous than not a withdrawal agreement, we'll leave that to one side, but a lack of an agreement, a lack of a deal. And even if we have 35, 40, 50, 100 mini deals, again, the EU says this will not happen, even if we did have that, you would accept that for a chunk of time, economically, that would be disadvantageous to many small businesses in this country. Would you accept that?
I run a small business. I don't believe it'll be a problem.
Because?
I really don't believe it'll be a problem, because I think we will carry on pretty much as we are.
And what do you do?
Until we get that. I work in the building trade.
And what?
I have great sympathy with people that are concerned about medicines. Absolutely, only a very hard person couldn't be concerned about their worries and concerns. But think about it logically. If we run out of paracetamol, we will contact a country somewhere in the world that has a surplus of paracetamol, buy it and fly it in. It's not as if all supplies of desperately important and vital medicines will suddenly dry up. They're still available all over the world.
Even though we have important agreements and checks and balances within our EU exchanges of medicines to make sure they're safe. So we get them from where? And what about the standards in those countries? That kind of thing. It's an important practicality, isn't it, David?
Of course it is, but you have countries like Australia, New Zealand, United States, Canada. They have very similar standards to those which we have, if not better. Certainly pharmaceutically they do. So,
no one's going to die through lack of paracetamol, though, are they?
Well, no, they're not. They're not going to die through lack of anything if we can import it. It's available. This is scaremongering that I just find incredible. But I can understand why. It's because there has been well,
I'm not scaremongering. I'm asking you. You're a fan of a rhetorical question. I'm a fan of an actual question that gets an actual answer. I'm asking you whether the status quo. You might not want the status quo. You might want change, and I get that. You might be supportive of Brexit and want change. That's fine, but you would accept, wouldn't you, that a jarring departure without proper organised transitional arrangements is more likely to be damaging to individuals and to companies than not?
With goodwill on all sides, no, I don't accept it.
You don't accept it?
No, I don't accept it, because I don't see why people would deliberately be nasty and hurt one another. I really don't.
Have you met the world, David?
Hey, I was in the fire service for 33 years. I've met some really, really nasty people over the years. So, yes, I have met. I'm very much a realist. I've met people that have set light to their own houses and killed their own family.
Well, I can't see how, given what Jeremy Hunt answered that question to Andrew Marr was it June? I can't see how that is a country not intending to harm itself. David, thank you for your call, David in Coventry. But let's carry on our conversation about no deal. Steve has called from Bridgend and Peter in Cardiff. We'll have a Welsh 5 minutes. Hello, Steve.
How you doing?
I'm very well, thanks. Yeah, you take medication. So what medication is it, if I can ask?
Okay, I take a tablet called Creon. Mm-hmm. Okay, Creon is basically an enzyme replacement, which means that I can eat and digest my food. I take about 6 of them a day.
Pretty
Without
important.
them, I can't survive.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't eat. I've been stockpiling for about 3 or 4 months, I'll be honest with that. But a month ago, went to my chemist and they said, no Creon on your prescription, there's none in the country.
What did you do?
That's a good job I was stockpiling. So I jumped in my car and I went round about 5 or 6 different chemists in the area, and I managed to track them down.
What did the chemists say to you about supplies?
We'll do our very best to get them in.
And is there any alternative to that?
No, it's made on the continent, and it's the only place that does it. And there's lots of people with stomach ailments and stomach illnesses and all that sort of stuff who rely on this stuff to stay alive.
And have you had any contact from the NHS itself about your situation?
No.
It's a bit worrying, isn't it?
Yes, and all these people who come on and are sort of so blasé about it. There are people who are taking a lot more medication than I am, who rely on it day to day. Mm. The NHS pays a fortune keeping us alive, and then we need this medication going forward. I'm very lucky, but I'm also not happy for people to come on who know nothing about the situation, will say, yes, it's going to be all right. That's okay to say I'm going to be all right when I look at my breakfast the following morning and I can't eat it because I can't digest it without this tablet.
So have you had conversations? I'm just curious about the level of involvement, say, of even your GP about this, because if I were in your shoes, I would have. I mean, you've obviously gone around with your stockpiling plan yourself, but I'd have a Brexit plan.
Well, the Brexit plan is you can actually get a prescription from your doctor that you can buy it direct from the manufacturers, but that's quite a palaver.
Tell me about that palaver. What does that involve?
Basically, you're going to go get a UK prescription from your doctor to send to a company not offshore, and then you obviously have to pay package, whatever the cost of the tablets, the post the package. But that's something that we would have to do if there was none in the country. And I suspect there are a lot of people like me who are stockpiling.
Well,
I know a lot of people that say that's not
do it anyway.
Right thing to do.
I'd say to my GP, give me that prescription anyway, and I'll get the year's supply from whatever the company's name is.
It's only got about a 6-month shelf life anyway, so I'm going to have to work through. So I got to put a bit of effort in to sort it out, which I will do because it's for my benefit. But I hate these people who come on and are very, very blasé about other people's lives. I think they should be pulled up.
Well, let me stay with us, Steve. Peter in Cardiff is on the line. Peter, you're quite relaxed about no deal being on the table.
No, I'm just amazed at this guy. The reason he's got no tablets because they're all hoarding them. That's the problem. Anyway, that's why I phoned up about. I was amazed at the statement that you made, that you would be amazed that a politician announced that people would be injured because of a decision he made. Now, what on earth do you think sending a country to war does? I'll make sure nobody gets hurt.
It's not the same.
And then you have the nerve to say to that other guy,
it's not the same.
You're not worldly. You don't understand the world. It's you who doesn't understand the world. Get real.
I think when I said, have you met the world, I think you'll find that was a little joke between me and the caller, Peter.
It was exactly what you meant, and as a journalist, your world becomes appalling.
Can I say something to Peter, please, Sheila?
Please do.
You can say what you like, pal.
I'm not your pal for a kick-off.
No, exactly. Well, there we are. We keep it like that.
Okay. All right, guys, go on.
I hope that you are never ill and need medication.
Sunshine. I've had both hips replaced, and I've had all the stories of people saying they won't replace your hip till you're 90. And I was working and climbing up cranes, Sunshine. As soon as I had a problem with the hips, my doctor sent me to the...
I haven't said anything...
That in within 6 months.
Okay, you've had your go. Now let me have my go.
Ask the question and then I will get Peter to answer it. Go on.
Okay. Did I mention Brexit or did I mention Remain?
You didn't.
I just said the people are talking about what they don't know about. We run out of tablets. People are ill. We support those people when they're ill. Okay? That's not a political, that's an actual fact. Now, the guy can say what he wants to, do what he wants to, run up and down scaffold, blah, 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 blah. I'm really not interested in that. That's a fact. Now, unless somebody can guarantee the supply of that medicine, we have a problem. And I don't care if we leave, Remain, free trade deal, Norway plus, Canada 9-9. I'm not interested. All I'm interested in is when I go to my chemist, I get my tablets. I'm not interested about the rest of it. So if people can't buy into that, the rest of it is just noise.
Okay, Peter, it's your time to make some noise. Go on. Pardon? What? Say that again? Peter?
Who's speaking to? Not me.
Peter, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's defeated his own argument. Nothing, absolutely nothing in the supply chain has changed at the moment. Absolutely nothing. The only reason he's got no tablets because people like, understandably, but people like him, like when we have a bit of snow, everybody goes and gets 6 bottles of milk and 4 loaves, and then they get chucked in the bin. It's hoarding. It's understandable if your life or your well-being is dependent.
No, hang on, Steve.
Causing the problem.
Steve,
it's nothing to do with leaving the EU.
All right, Steve, come back on that. It's your fault. You're hoarding them.
Yeah, I did say I was at fault for hoarding them, so I didn't hide away from that because I just don't trust these people. But the thrust of my argument, I'm not a whatever it is. I'm just saying that they're coming on and they're saying everything will be okay. Things are creaking already. There was a report out today. So many people are hoarding so much stuff. They're not doing that because they think everything's going to be okay. They're worried about it. And what does worry cause? More worry. So I'm not interested if we leave or stay. That's irrelevant to me at this moment in time. But I want my medicine when I go to the chemist.
Peter, can I ask you, in your view, no, I don't think he has. Is no deal a simple negotiating position?
No deal is
Hang on, good Lord.
Position.
Is no deal a simple negotiating position, or is it a likelihood? What do you think?
No deal is a negotiating position brought about by people like yourself who don't want to leave. You're simply taking a bargaining counter off the table. We will be leaving, there's no doubt about that. I mean, you've even tried today to bring in the Deutsche Bank as problems, which is a purely
I literally wanted George Parker to tell me about Deutsche Bank, and he did.
Is going down and losing employees because of the EU's situation. It's not correct.
I didn't say it was.
The Deutsche Bank is in trouble
I didn't say it was.
Bank is in trouble.
I didn't say it was. And neither did my guest George Parker. I asked him one question.
I don't want to mention it's Brexit. In it goes. The suggestion is there.
No, the suggestion is in. The question was, before you go, George Parker, who works for the Financial Times, tell me about this big news story, Deutsche Bank, and he did.
And he managed to throw in Brexit, which he was trying to do.
He said it has nothing to do with Brexit. Peter, I'm going to put you down so that I can speak. He said it had nothing to do with Brexit. The idea that we were pushing that Deutsche Bank and its decisions today has anything to do with Brexit is nonsense. My guest said the polar opposite of that. Your turn.
Oh, sorry. No, it's okay. I've got something to do now. So
that doesn't surprise me at all.
I'll leave you to it. Go on, do something else a bit light. Let's have something lighter for one day. Just lighten it up a bit. I got to go and get some timber to build a roof. Okay? Righto. Cheerio.
All right, sunshine. Thanks very much, Peter in Cardiff, and to Steve in Bridgend. Stay well, Steve. Hope you get what you need. Well, that was quite something, wasn't it? I need something lighter now that you've just pointed out the thing that I said was nonsense and not true. I need something lighter. That's what I'm all about. The fluffy kittens. Peter's called from Newcastle. Hi, Peter.
Hello there.
You've always, or historically, you voted Labour?
Yes, all my life, yeah.
And you voted how in the referendum?
Leave.
And so your take on this is that he's caving in, is it?
Yes, he's caving in on everything. How can we trust someone who can't get the anti-Semitism thing sorted out? He sends people out to do his work. He hasn't got a full response. He should be leading from the front. He isn't. And just a little bit of what I wanted to mainly say is, there was 17+ million people said that we wanted to leave. Now we don't leave anymore. We need to leave and get out of the EU. Get the fishing back in. They've started again, the EU, putting tariffs on our fishermen. I live 5 miles from a fishing port. And they're still waiting for the government, 3.5 years later, to do something about it. So Jeremy Corbyn wanting another referendum. Remember,
but to be clear, just a minute, Peter. But to be clear, that this announcement today is calling for another referendum to stop a no deal or a bad deal. Now, how do you feel about either of those two options, no deal or a hard Brexit deal?
To stop it, he shouldn't be stopping it.
You think just do it, even no deal?
All of the people of 17 million people said.
And you're not listening to any warnings about the dangers of no deal, no?
Well, they had warnings about the monetary fund, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work with us.
You think out matters more than anything?
I'm 70 odd now. I don't care, but I worry for my grandchildren. I really do, because
how old are they?
Themselves out. Never mind Europe.
How old are your grandchildren?
17, 18, and so on.
And are you troubled at all by the fact that they would lose their freedom of movement around the whole of Europe or the member states of the EU?
Well, you see, this is what you're saying.
Well, it's true.
This is what people say. You're going to lose this, you're going to lose that.
But it's true, Peter. In that instance, it's true.
How many people... I'm sorry, I'm a leaver. Could I just explain this? How many people go to Spain on holiday?
Oh, yeah. No, I'm not saying you can't go into Europe. I'm talking about...
I'm just saying you were restricted. It isn't any... They're not going to restrict anybody from this country going into any EU country. They're not going to stop delivering...
To live and work as freely as they can now, they will.
And vegetables to this country. Because it's their livelihood as well. Nobody's talking to them. All the people who are talking, politicians.
Have you spoken to your teenage grandchildren about it? What do they say?
All they want to do is have a living wage to compete with other countries. Now, you mentioned there and you laughed.
Well, our economy is doing better than a lot of the EU countries.
Yeah, and so is America.
Mm.
And so is America. They, apart from Donald Trump giving advice, he's got the best economy in the world. And you people are laughing at him. You know, that guy, I've got a strange feeling it'll come out. I might be wrong. It'll come out that's being put out there now, because it was about 6 months ago this happened, is to frighten people to think, oh, well, we won't get a trade deal with America because this is what we've said with it, so we'll have to remain. That's what I think. I know it might sound stupid to a lot of people, but that's how I think.
All right, Peter, thanks for your call. Peter in Newcastle. We're in the northeast of England, and that the leaker, immediately focusing on the original leaker of the documents, should be eviscerated. Nick has called from Croydon on this question of trust in Boris Johnson. Nick, hello.
Hello, Sheila. Good afternoon to you. The only person responsible for Sir Kim Darroch resigning is Sir Kim Darroch. His message back about President Trump just shows he is incapable of fulfilling his function. Be frank by all means, but the use of language in an official document like petty or mendacious or inept or stupid, that's not the language we need from a diplomat. It's not diplomatic language.
No, but it's not.
One second, Sheila.
It's private.
No, it's not. Any official document isn't private.
Well, these are, because they're deleted after 3 months, diplomatic telegrams. They're automatically deleted after...
By definition, if you put something on a official public document, it's not a private matter.
Oh, you know what I mean, Nick. You know what I mean.
I don't.
You do know what I mean. It's not. You don't routine. It's when he's writing it. He's not writing it to you and me. He's writing it to a limited number of people in government who need to see it. And then, like I've said to you three times,
you are entirely
I've said to you 3 times, these diplomatic telegrams are deleted after 3 months. So whoever kept hold of it for a reason.
No, you are entirely wrong. Anything which is on an official headed paper is a public document. Nick from Croydon writing personally to Sheila from LBC is an entirely different matter to Nick the ambassador writing about President Sheila. It's an entirely different matter.
But you understand?
Don't see that.
Oh, well, I'll tell you why I see it, because I know it to be true that there are matters in government which are conducted in private, sometimes even in total secret for reasons of security. That's what I'm saying to you, and you know that to be true.
Well, in that case, phrase it in more diplomatic language. The language Sir Kim used was childish, insulting, and straight out of the playground. There is plenty of ways Sir Kim could have said, for example, that the administration is finding administration challenging. You don't say inept. I mean, it's a ridiculous thing to say. Since when?
Challenging isn't the same as inept, is it?
Sir Kim isn't able to state whether President Trump's inept or not. Sir Kim's never been president of the United States. He's no judge of what's capable and what's inept.
OK, Nick, thank you. Nick in Croydon.
We are, however, asking currently, what's the difference between Labour's anti-Semitism and the Conservatives' Islamophobia? Lee's in Swindon. Lee, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. So I guess probably a good place to start would be in a point of agreement. So firstly, just want to commend you for one of the things that you said earlier with regards to the difference in how the media report the very real racism that occurs both in the Labour Party and in the Conservative Party. There's so much that I'd love to say.
Well, you haven't said anything yet, mate, so let's crack on, all right?
Okay, I was just about to. Thank you. So the first point that I'd make is that, for example, Islamophobia is not even registered as a real problem within the Tory party or on the right. For example, very well-known commentators, Rod Liddle, Melanie Phillips et al., they deny the very existence of there being such a thing.
Yeah, but the former co-chair of the Conservative Party talks of little else, so we can park that claim immediately. Carry on.
Well, if you want to make a statement like that...
But you say the Conservative... It's not acknowledged by the... Yes, I will. It's not acknowledged by the Conservative Party, and here is a former co-chair of the Conservative Party repeatedly describing it as a toxic problem. So try again.
Okay. Do you want this conversation to be an open conversation, or are you going to just hit me over the head?
Fact-based is fine by me. Now let's crack on with some facts.
Well, I just gave you very specific...
No, you didn't. You said the Conservative Party doesn't acknowledge its problem, and I pointed out that it does. It's a very senior member of it, speaks of it frequently. Now tell me what the difference is in your mind between the Conservatives' problem with Islamophobia and the Labour Party's problem with anti-Semitism.
Okay. Well, I'm speaking with somebody, my wife and her entire family are Jewish. I'm a member of the Labour Party. I'm a Corbynist.
See, I'm learning an awful lot about you, but I'm not learning anything about the differences between Labour's anti-Semitism and the Tories' Islamophobia.
Okay, well, the point one is that the term is within the general membership of the Conservative Party. For example, there was obviously a poll that came out last week which stated, nearly 60% of all Conservative members would not like to see...
Yes, I've already repeated that 3 or 4 times on the programme as an introduction to the question of what's the difference between the people in the Labour Party that are anti-Semitic and the people in the Conservative Party that are Islamophobic. So let's try, but I think, with respect, mate, for the final time, let's have a crack at answering the question.
Look, James, I'm trying my hardest to engage with you. I don't want to be confrontational. I'm just trying to articulate my point.
Yes, and I'm pointing out you haven't made one yet. So finally, what is the difference between Islamophobia in the Conservative Party and anti-Semitism in the Labour Party?
The difference between anti-Semitism and Islamophobia with the Tory party is an out-and-out hatred, dislike, prejudice against people from the Islamic community. Within the Labour Party, what's happened is, unfortunately, because of a very long-standing support and opposition to the oppression that the Israeli government have imposed on the Palestinian people...
But you're the first person to mention the Palestinian people on this programme, and it's 10:38.
Right, and the point is?
Well, the point is that none of the accusations that are currently being levelled at the Labour Party have anything to do with support or otherwise for the Palestinian people. The question is...
They do. What it is because
the question is about how allegations of anti-Semitism...
Would you mind letting me have 30 seconds to articulate my point?
Mate, you've had 5 minutes, and again, I know about your wife's family.
7 seconds into every sentence.
Because you're not saying anything that makes sense.
Context. You get 20 minutes to rant at the beginning of your opening.
This is Lee, who doesn't want to be confrontational. Go on then. Tell me how awful Israel is. Tell me how awful Israel is.
James. I'm a fellow raver as well. I like you, but just give me 30 seconds.
But why are you talking about nightclub habits when you could be talking about how awful Israel is?
Okay. So going back to just trying to articulate, what's happened in the Labour Party is there's basically been a blurred line. Islamophobia is a very clear thing, okay? The complexities of anti-Semitism is you have the government of Israel, the citizens of Israel, you've got Zionism, you've got Judaism, etc. They're all different things, but the problem is everything gets bunched together, and there's a lot of confusion both inside the Labour Party and outside the Labour Party. And I think the solution to this problem, I don't think we'll ever really get to the solution, but I think we'll get closer to the solution if all sides can be more open and have honest discussions. I mean, we talk about the fact that apparently the Israeli government, you can't mention the Israeli government influencing UK politics because that would be anti-Semitic. For example, there's a £1 million bribe that went to Joan Ryan and a bunch of...
Here we go. Okay, pal, off you go. 10:40 is the time. It's a libelous accusation, of course, that somebody has been bribed. If you can back it up, then good luck. I obviously disassociate myself from that sort of language immediately. But thank you, because there is the illustration. There's this sort of curious sense of self-righteousness attached to Jeremy Corbyn's supporters, who think that, you know, claims that investigations of anti-Semitism have been interfered with from the very highest level is somehow born of his historical support for the Palestinian people. And then it's very important you can have an open conversation in which I will accuse politicians of accepting bribes. And Lee hasn't got a clue how ridiculous he just sounded. And nor would, if they have the guts to do so, a Conservative supporter who rings me to explain why the problem of anti-Semitism in the Labour Party is much bigger than the problem of Islamophobia in the Conservative Party. Because they are, and forgive me if you're of a delicate disposition, I'm about to employ some rather fruity language, they are two postulant cheeks of the same backside.
What else will flow from this, I wonder? And that question of anti-Semitism, do you know what it is? Charlie, I'm really interested to talk to you, Charlie and Beau, because you believe, you're a member of the party, you believe this is all about smearing Jeremy Corbyn.
Absolutely. And look, I'm a member of many Jewish colleagues, comrades, who are in the party as well, and they feel, like, for example, in local CLPs, you're not allowed to speak about Palestine anymore. We all believe in the existence of Israel. We all believe that the Israeli state should exist. And within Israel, there is disagreement about concepts of Zionism. And we know all of this. And I know, with my colleagues, my Jewish colleagues, that Corbyn, you know, the commemoration of Cable Street, Corbyn was there, nearly in tears. I didn't see Jess Phillips there. Didn't see Tom Watson there. I didn't see any of these detractors there.
But none of these things are about one event, are they?
No, it's not one event. Multiple events he has been. He organised anti-fascist demonstrations in the 80s and the 70s throughout his life. It's not a one-off event. He has always been there, and not just fighting anti-Semitism, fighting Islamophobia. He's been a lifelong anti-fascist. And my Jewish colleagues in the Labour Party are saying that sometimes they feel bullied because they stand up for him. So there is a difference. There is a split, I believe, about ideology and belief and what is anti-Semitism and what isn't. You know, the argument of anti-Zionism. Zionism is not it's a Christian concept that came from the 19th century that believed that all Jewish people should return to Israel. There is an argument and debate within Israel about Zionism. You don't have to agree.
But there are plenty of Jewish people who don't believe in Zionism and don't wish to live in Israel, don't want to return to Israel, and are perfectly capable, as you are, as I am, of distinguishing between criticism of this Israeli administration or any Israeli administration that we disagree with, and refusing to accept that Jewish people who do want to live in a Jewish state have the right to do so. Do you believe they have the right to do so? But do you believe they have the right to do so?
Of course, absolutely, and so do my Israeli Labour Party member friends. So this is nonsense. And John Ware's documentary, John Ware has been accused of Islamophobia. John Ware is a Murdoch man. He's a Murdoch Sun newspaper. Don't forget the Sun tapped the telephone of a dead girl's mobile phone. John Ware was working for the Murdoch press at the time. This is the man that made the documentary yesterday. He did not allow, apparently Diane Abbott was interviewed. She wasn't allowed to. It was a polemic. It wasn't a fair documentary. It was a polemic.
Well, hang on a sec. Before we take John Ware's character to pieces, Jeremy Corbyn himself described John Ware as the ever-vigilant investigative journalist John Ware. And Charlie, I think you should know that in journalism, not everything makes the cut.
Where was the counter voice? Why was it all one-sided? And why was the creepy music every time you saw Corbyn? Why was there creepy music?
I didn't notice that. I didn't notice creepy music.
I did.
Well, you interpreted it as creepy. I didn't even notice them.
Where were the Jewish Voices for Labour? Where was the Jewish Socialist Movement? Where were the various Jewish groups?
Can I ask you, Charlie, when you say my Israeli Labour Party friends, do you mean Jewish people?
Yes, of course.
Well, why do you call them Israeli?
Because what's happening, and what I'm hearing throughout the day, is that
have you just accidentally been a little bit anti-Semitic there, Charlie?
It's not.
No?
The reason I'm saying that is because you guys are saying that people like me don't support Israel. I do support Israel. So am I now anti-Semitic because
no,
I support
I'm
Israel?
not saying anything about you personally at all, Charlie. And nor am I saying that the Labour Party isn't doing anything about anti-Semitism. I'm reflecting on what happened last night. I'm reflecting on what whistleblowers have said and asking people if they understand what anti-Semitism is. And let me finish my point, if you would. I will let you come back. Just that phrase you used there a moment ago, my Israeli Labour Party friends.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I think you're teetering on the edge there, Charlie. Because what I'm
why
are they Israeli if they're born in, I don't know, Bracknell and happen to be Jewish?
Because it's not me. It's what you guys are saying.
I'm not. I'm asking you about the words that came out of your mouth.
All morning, LBC has been basically saying that
you're deflecting from the question I've asked about your words, because I think your words were rather telling.
The reason I said that is because I'm saying that I believe in the state of Israel. I believe in the two-party state.
I think the reason you said it is because when you hear the word Israel, you hear the word Jew, and vice versa.
No, because a lot of my friends, most of my Jewish friends, are not from Israel, but I happen to have friends who are. But what you're conducting a picture of is that anybody, that we don't support the state of Israel, whereas we do. A lot of us do. Most of us do.
Yeah, and Charlie, I'm not suggesting, and I've never suggested for a second that every member of the Labour Party who supports Jeremy Corbyn is anti-Semitic. If that's what you've interpreted, let me put that completely to bed. Of course, that's not the case. What I am saying is if I were in an organisation, whether it was a political party or anything else, and members of that organisation were clearly anti-Semitic, I would want them investigated thoroughly, and I would want them out on their ear if it was found to be true.
And that's why the Labour Party has doubled. Look at the protesters in the Labour Party. At least the Labour Party, with Jenny Formby, has doubled the number of people investigating it. They've invested vast amounts of time and money, which is unlike the Conservative Party and Islamophobia, because, it's all right, Boris can get away with saying anything. The Labour Party have made a concerted effort, and so it should. And what's happened is that you're looking at what the documentary looked at them, criticising the mechanisms. It didn't look at what the positive sides were. It didn't look at what is actually happening. And I just feel it was a polemic rather than a balanced documentary.
OK, Charlie, thank you for your call. Charlie in Bode.
Today's major question is, why do you think Vanessa George is on the front page of the Daily Mail today? Asian grooming gangs get way, way more coverage than any other ethnic grouping of paedophiles or sex abusers, and the head of the church, the Catholic Church in England and Wales, was found last month by the Child Sex Abuse Inquiry, which is ongoing, of course, to have prioritised the reputation of the church over the safety and the security of the children abused by priests, and you probably didn't even know about that. 0345 6060 973. Tom's in Ware. Tom, what would you like to say?
How you doing, James? I'm really nervous, I've got to be honest, because I've listened to your programme for many years, and I've honestly, this is quite a worrying kind of case, to be honest, because as you said, what the question is, why is it predominantly Muslim grooming gangs that are actually sort of covered?
No. We're talking about Vanessa George, who's a white woman on the front of the Daily Mail today who abused children. We're talking about Vincent Nichols, who's the Cardinal, the most senior Catholic in England and Wales, and last month was found to have prioritised the reputation of the church. We see the grooming gangs reported all the time. We see they're on trial, and we see irresponsible people pretending that somehow these cases aren't happening and aren't public. So what do you think determines either media and or public prioritisation of paedophilia? Why do you think we don't treat them all the same?
What about treat them? Well, I think a racism comes into it. I think
not in the case of Vanessa George on the front of the Mail today.
Well, yeah, I understand that, but that's if I'm honest, I think as far as I can only go on what I've researched on the internet, and I've looked at this quite.
Those are words that strike a chill into my heart.
They shouldn't do that, because James, what I'm trying to be, I'm being honest with you. I try to take everything, and you.
The internet is full of liars.
I know it's full of lies. Right. I know that, and you take all that in, and you try and find a way through where you get gut instinct. Well, that's obviously exaggerated. We've got to be honest about that.
I would really urge you to stick with trusted and trustworthy journalists rather than to search out your own sources on the internet.
I'm going to ask you a question. Who do I go to?
Me.
Then? Who do I go? What, you're going to tell me exactly? I know you've been you're research.
Next question.
Next question. Okay. No. I understand that. No.
Nick Ferrari.
Can I give you my thoughts on this?
Andrew Norfolk at the Times on the grooming issue. He's got himself into a little bother subsequently.
Was most probably one of the first people to basically highlight.
So anyway, back to the question. Why do you think they're not all treated equally?
Why don't I think they're not all treated equally? That's a very good question. I'll tell you what I think. There's so many stories, and I think some of these are true, some of these are obviously exaggerated. There's obviously people coming forward, there's whistleblowers, people like Maggie Oliver have come forward about what's
That's the lady who's written the book in the Mail, which is serialised today, and I recommend it to everybody. But this is, in a nutshell, Tom.
No, but I'm trying to answer your question. This is basically how I see it.
But I just, before you do, this is the problem with researching stuff on the internet. When you say there are so many stories, you're down one rabbit hole. You're looking at stories focusing on one area and one issue. So the answer to the question of why a certain grouping of paedophiles gets a lot more attention and coverage than a different type, for example, a Catholic priest, is actually because people like you spend so much time on the internet searching out one particular strand.
No, I'm not. I didn't say. Did I say I'm not searching for one particular strand. I'm not searching for one particular strand. What I'm trying to say to you is that the reason I think that it's predominantly covered, seen as a kind of a Muslim problem, is that.
But again, it's not.
The majority. Let me just finish this. Let me get to say. I know it's going to be difficult.
But you have to say, Tom, the reason why I see it predominantly as a Muslim problem. You can't claim that other people do, because I'm asking a question about why people who behave identically get treated differently.
Well, as I see it, what I've actually kind of researched about is that people coming forward like Maggie Oliver. And I'll go through someone I spoke to personally who used to work in child trafficking for 25 years in the Metropolitan Police Force. There was basically there was an email that came down from their superiors, and this is documented from. This coming quite.
No, you crack on, Tom. Say your piece.
No. Basically, they were actually told, for the sake of racial relations, to basically. To really not to basically investigate or take any of these investigations forward. And it was a scandal. And
it didn't happen. It went ahead, and it's forward. And here you are on the radio answering the question about why are we ignoring paedophilia by Catholic priests and piling in on Muslim grooming gangs? Why can't we pile in on both of them?
I'm saying is
why can't we pile in on both of them? And here's you saying, the Muslims get off.
Exactly.
The Muslims get off easy.
I have no problem with piling in on the Catholic.
Well, why aren't you talking about them then, Tom? Why aren't you researching them on the internet?
I have researched Catholic, but...
Who's the worst offender, do you think, in the Catholic Church over the last 50 years when it comes to abusing boys?
Who's the worst offender?
Or just name a school. Name a school where it's happened.
It's particularly Catholic priests.
Name a school.
I don't know any schools, and I don't know.
Why aren't you researching it, Tom?
Because nothing's been covered in the media as extensively as the Muslim grooming gangs.
Well, why are you researching the stuff that's already been extensively covered?
No. But James, if it's not reported in the media to the same extent, then that's all we got. Basically, we've got, unless we can start.
So who should the citizen journalists be? Who should the citizen journalists be concentrating on? The criminals who aren't being reported in the media, the criminals who aren't on trial, or the criminals who are? Come on, mate, you're brighter than that.
Michael's called from Worthing already. You're furious with me, Michael. Why?
Oh, Sheila, please, really. What do you want men to do?
In what context? What do I want men to do?
He said to the reporter, I want you to bring somebody to chaperone you, so make sure that everything's above board.
He said it at the last minute, having agreed to it
It
earlier
doesn't
on.
matter, Sheila. I am really fed up with the Me Too argument. Do you know what? I will not be in a room with a woman by myself now because of that movement.
What do you think the Me Too argument is?
Well, it's just like, keep your hands off me. And it's not that I would ever touch a woman because, I'm a gay man anyway, but that's not the point. I do not like being in a room with a single woman just because of the Me Too organisation.
What do you think the danger is to you?
Well, she could be, psychotic, or she could be bipolar. Or I have no idea, Sheila. But I still feel uncomfortable going into a room with a woman by myself.
Since Me Too, not before.
No, not before. No.
And let's talk about life before Me Too. What kind of settings would you find yourself in a room alone with a woman at work, maybe something like that?
Well, I don't work, but let's say a doctor's surgery with a doctor.
Female doctor, right? And you always felt comfortable before then?
Before that, yeah. But now I will always take somebody with me to make sure that everything's.
In case the doctor's psychotic.
You never know, Sheila, these days, really, do you? The mental health issue is enormous in this country, so you never know who you're standing next to.
And if you went to see a male doctor, who, of course, is as prone to mental illness as any other human being...
Well, I wouldn't want him to think that I was going to touch him up. Let's put it that way.
Would you take a chaperone into it with a male doctor?
I will do, yeah.
Oh, you will?
Yeah, of course I will.
So this isn't about Me Too or gender or the fear of being assaulted?
Oh, no. That Me Too thing covers all bases, all sexualities.
It doesn't. No, hang on. It covers women being protected from harassment, is its central message.
Oh, so you're now sexualising it?
No, it just is. It's a campaign about...
You're now saying it's all
No, I'm not. I'm telling you. That's why my first question to you was, what do you think the central message of Me Too is? It's clearly a campaign against male harassment of women.
No. I'll tell you...
Yes.
Sheila, it's a cover for women to hide under if they need to.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
And you've only thought this since Me Too.
Do you really think that every man wants to touch a woman, but when they're by them themselves?
Not at all.
No, they don't. Of course they don't.
Not at all.
No, but all
I'm frequently on my own with men in professional settings. It's perfectly fine.
But Sheila, come on, look. You can go into a room. If the man walks in by himself, what is your reaction? Am I safe?
Hello?
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Your first thing is, am I safe in this room with this man?
Well, not at work, it isn't.
Well, it depends on...
Well, I know people.
Yeah, well, no, I'm not talking about work, but if you're in a room and you're doing something, whatever, I don't know, a library, and you're in a quiet room, and a bloke walks in, what would you do? You go, oh.
I genuinely wouldn't, as my first port of call, imagine he was going to sexually assault me.
Yeah, well, we'll have to disagree on that one. Agree to disagree.
Well, you can't agree. No, Michael, you can't disagree with what I'm telling you, I think, about my own reactions.
Yeah,
you have to accept what I'm telling you. I'm not telling you about your reactions. I'm having a conversation with you about them. You've just told me that we'll have to agree to disagree about how I behave. I've just told you that if a man walked in a room, my first port of call wouldn't be, oh, my God, he's going to rape me.
No, I didn't think you would say that. All you say, your natural instincts are, where's the door?
No, it's not.
Are you sure about that, Sheila?
I'm completely sure about that, Michael.
Try it out next time you're in a room by yourself with a man.
I'll be sure to do that, and I'm kind of hoping it's not you. Michael, thank you. Michael in Worthing. Nick has called from Richmond. Nick, you're minded to think that the US politician is right to be wary.
I think the way we have to look at it is he's not making things this way. The so-called political left have made the world this way, and people have to protect themselves against it. And what I mean by that is accusing people of cultural appropriation, I don't know, for opening a Mexican restaurant, or banning all male police choirs for not being inclusive enough to women. So sometimes people are feigning or pretending old values, but they're simply projecting or protecting themselves against some ridiculous new values that pretty much nobody except some leftist extremists even agree with.
But political skullduggery isn't new, is it?
I think it's exponential. The world seems to change more and more. In the last 3 years, it's changed beyond recognition of the previous 50, and probably in the last year, it's changed beyond recognition of the last 3. It's not paranoia, as you put it, of these right-wing figures. Trump gets a lot of false accusations. For example, if he's talking about MS-13 gang members that have come across the border, then the media splices that and accuses him of talking about all immigrants. Trump, Farage, The Guardian recently reported that a right-wing where a person attacked or started a fight with a CNN journalist. Well, when you watch the video, the CNN journalist challenged him to a fight, which he declined. We have a situation where straw men are being created about people in the media, and other people are completely unaware of this because they don't check the facts, they don't check the sources. And I wanted to also go on to the Me Too movement, if that's okay. There's no way that a sensible person could agree with the Me Too movement or trial based on hearsay. I mean, the whole concept is like How to Kill a Mockingbird. Somebody lynched by the mob. But
you're conflicting. If I may, on Me Too, what you're saying there, and I don't doubt that there is a danger this can happen, and it has happened, that somebody loses their job, loses their livelihood, loses their reputation before anything is actually proved about them. That's what you're referring to, isn't it?
Of course, yeah, that's what's intended for. Hang on.
But Me Too, #MeToo, wasn't saying, hey girls, go on social media and routinely accuse your colleagues of sexual harassment, ruin their lives without any by or leave, because no sensible woman would do that. No sensible person would do that. What Me Too was asking, to try and get a sense of the scale and make people understand the scale of harassment of girls and women, was just to say, put online, just put online what happened to you. Just say what happened to you. Don't say who did it. Just put online what happened to you. And it was an incredibly powerful moment. It was a series of moments. I think it was incredibly powerful, the conversations it started.
Well, that in itself is sound, but what it actually is in reality is trial without due process. And we have, as a society, the idea
against
of
whom?
Trial by
against
law.
Whom?
When I say trial, people have lost their reputation over nothing more than gossip.
Who did you have in mind?
I don't recall the list of people, but there's many people on who have been, let's say, outed on the public media, social media for things on the basis of hearsay.
And how much time?
It's an unsound principle.
How much thought have you given, out of interest, to the hundreds of thousands, millions, in fact, of women and girls who tweeted #MeToo and gave their experiences throughout their lives? Well, hang on. Yes. Let me finish my point. Their lives were sometimes ruined. Their lives were blighted as well. And there was no trial because nobody believed them, or they didn't dare speak up, like the lady who rang just before the news. You know, are we taking as much time to think about all of those? Or just the men who are discomforted?
I would say that a lot of so-called left-wing, so-called popular thought is not sound, because the basis of what you're saying is two wrongs make a right.
No, I'm asking you an open question. How much thought have you given to all of the girls and women who bothered to say #MeToo and describe what had happened to them? Hand on heart, how often have you thought of them and their pain?
Well, I think in reality, a lot, because I think in reality most people with these claims are actually correct, but it doesn't change the situation that it's putting a whole section of the population in jeopardy with the fact that anybody who wants to say anything can.
You're not going to linger even for a minute on the whole section of the population, i.e., women and girls, who've been in jeopardy for centuries along these lines and been silenced for centuries because of what's happened to them. We're not going to linger on that for long before we say, "Oh, men, what about men?"
No, I don't think there are these systematic problems as feminism likes to claim. I think it's trying to make a perception that there are much more problems than there really are. I'm sure in a long time in the past, these things were much more prevalent than they are now. But I think
every one of my friends, most of the women I work with, and myself, I will include obviously because I know my own experiences, can tell you that in a lifetime, or over however long you've been alive, post-puberty, you get harassed and you get touched in an unwelcome way by unwelcome people, and you have to deal with it one way or another. That's half the population experiencing that routinely, Nick.
Probably even more than half, to be honest.
All right, but sorry, you want to talk about the men again? Before we even linger for a minute on the experience of girls and women, you want to bring in men again?
I don't dispute that that's a problem.
Well, you did a moment ago. You disputed the scale of the problem.
And I don't dispute it happens. I don't dispute a problem.
You disputed the scale of the problem. I'm trying to reinforce in your mind the scale of the problem.
I think that I think feminism is blowing a lot of things out of proportion.
Am I guilty of doing that by telling you what I know of the women in my life? and my own experience. Am I blowing this out of all proportion, or am I just telling you that actually, Nick, if you'll only listen, girls and women face a lot of unwelcome contact from men?
Okay, I don't have my missus come back every evening and tell me this.
I didn't say it happens every evening.
All right.
How often is enough? How often is too much?
I don't know, but if I go on, the
Once
women
is
I know,
too much.
yes, I have heard about some of these things, and yes, they do exist. They are real, but I don't think it's good to try to swing society to the point where we're living in a situation of fear.
So let me get this right. The senator is right to be cautious of women coming to be alone with him. But when I tell you that many thousands and thousands of women, most women and girls, will experience unwelcome physical contact or verbal aggression from men in their lives, you don't want things to change too much.
I unfortunately, I do want things to change, and I do acknowledge there's lots of bad sides to human nature and human living. But I think there are some tangible things that we can actually debate feminism about. For example, the fact that 7% of women today identify as feminism. It makes claims that are scientifically verifiably false.
7%. Where'd you get that stat from?
7%. It's a well-known quoted stat. There's studies done. Jordan Peterson has cited that stat.
Yeah.
7% of women identify as feminism. It is scientifically verifiably wrong on many things it claims on major issues. Like it claims that all differences in outcome, like the gender pay gap, etc., which it over-exaggerates, of course, and over-eggs. It's claiming it's down to oppression, which is verifiably incorrect, according to Jordan Peterson, because there are hundreds of causal factors, including the measurements.
Okay, I mean, I'm going to leave it there just because of time, Nick. But you know, there are expressions of feminism in all kinds of ways. What I'm discussing with you is really a very simple day-to-day life thing that women and girls experience, and I'm just I'm just struck by the fact that you think it's right that this male politician, quotes, protect himself from a female journalist coming to see him, but you seem rather more relaxed and rather more resistant to the facts and the figures around the global abuse and harassment that girls and women receive. And if you make it a global picture, my goodness, it gets worse and worse. Nick, thank you for your call all the same. Nick in Richmond, Daniel in Woking and Mohammed in Brighton have called. Daniel, hello.
Hello, Sheila. Hi.
Hello there.
Hello?
Yes, hello. Yes. You think Me Too has gone too far? Hashtag too far.
Yeah, no, clearly I think they've gone too far. And, because I think clearly there are men out there who probably, do really horrible things.
Yeah.
Such as, obviously, like rape and stuff like that. But I think of late it's just been sort of more like a witch hunt towards men, that masculinity is bad. I mean, I've got boy kids, and I really struggled. I don't really know what to take them in society, or how do I even make them. It's almost like just being a man makes you automatically guilty of assaulting women. Or
why do you find that so difficult to navigate? Because it seems to me that if you raise your sons to be respectful, presumably they're respectful of their mother, for example.
Yes.
And do they have female cousins and aunties?
Yes, they do. Yes, so they do.
And you, in those situations when you're all together, there are endless opportunities, aren't there, to shape a child and to insist on good manners and to insist on kindness and insist on respect. So it's a kind of moment to moment, day to day exercise when you're creating a character, isn't it? Forming a character.
Yes, no, it does. But I think also in terms of the media today, so I mean, talking about sort of toxic masculinity, and obviously my idea clearly is that any kind of behavior or like certain traits are just toxic, whether it's been feminine or masculine. I mean, unless you want to say that there is nothing toxic about being a female, so there is no toxic femininity, but just toxic masculinity.
Well, there can be
because some of those.
Well, there can be toxic femininity, of course, in the same way that there can be toxic masculinity. But isn't surely the way to get around that with people is to insist on and shape in your children the opposite of those things?
Yeah, absolutely. I do believe that, but I just think in terms of, because I'm more of like a liberal. I mean, at least I consider myself to be one. But I think in terms of the feminine movement, not the feminine movement, but in terms of just the hashtag Me Too, it's gone to a point where it's almost about just every woman saying that I've actually been touched and molested.
But an awful lot of women. But Daniel, an awful lot of women. Daniel, I'm speaking. An awful lot of women have been molested and touched and harassed. That's all Me Too was inviting. Tell us, did it happen to you too? And the answer was yes, me too.
Yeah. I mean, does it only have to happen to women? I'm sure there are men out there.
No, but we're talking about male violence against women in this instance.
Yeah, but I think, like, let's say in terms of your conversation, Ariana, I heard you saying, there are really terrible men out there, and you're almost singularizing that as being a man. But I just think clearly there are terrible human beings out there, whether it be man or woman.
Yeah, there are.
And, and we all need protection from them. And I think, to be a man today in this society, it's very scary. I mean, today when I'm talking to, absolutely, I find it really, really, I don't really know what my place is.
Let me, I don't think your place is in any danger. I wouldn't worry too much, Daniel. Let me bring in Mohammed in Brighton. You disagree with Daniel. You think that Me Too is doing a good thing.
I'm gonna just take a second to calm myself down. Could you tell Daniel, get a grip, honestly, because you're being ludicrous. And the gentleman earlier from which I shouldn't really use the word gentleman either, but do you actually have any comprehension of how long women have been objectified and subjugated and treated in a way that is not becoming at all? Please don't go along that ridiculous route. Oh, what about men and so on and so forth? Women need more rights, okay? They need more protections, okay? And don't be childish in saying that there's bad people everywhere. Yes, but categorically, the treatment of women historically throughout humanity, the course of humanity, has been demonstratively worse than men's.
Daniel, respond to that. Respond to what Mohammed is saying. Go on.
Yes, no, absolutely. I mean, I do like the illustration. I think what Mohammed said is true. I mean, women have been obviously subjected to those things, and
and still are being. Around the world.
Yeah, to some extent. I mean, we're less now than
to a huge
before,
extent. Around the world to a huge extent, Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, like, but overall, less to less of an extent now than before, let's say 20, 50, 100 years ago.
Depends where you live. Depends where you live.
Yeah, but but my point is, let's say black people have been subjected to certain kind of let's say racism or whatsoever. Is it okay now, let's say all of a sudden, for black people now to be racist towards white people, and it's all right? I think in terms of
but Daniel,
actually gone.
Daniel. Of course, it isn't right for anyone to be racist to anybody else. But when a feminist movement invites women's stories so that we can get a picture and then offer a picture, reveal a picture of the kinds of things that girls and women routinely experience, why is that somehow an attack on men?
It's not an attack on men, I don't think. I think it's okay.
So why has it gone too far? Why is it toxic femininity?
It's not about equality anymore. I mean, at least that's how I feel. I just feel that it's more about special privileges. So let's say, as a woman,
but Daniel, women haven't had. Daniel, it's not a special privilege. It's a privilege that women haven't had and still often don't have, which is the privilege of physical privacy.
But they do have it.
No, we don't have it. We don't have it as much as we should have it.
So give me an example. So be specific. So tell me something that women should have today. Let's say, given the laws.
Women should always have had the physical privacy of only being touched by people they wish to touch them.
But men get touched. I mean, I've been to nightclubs where women come and touch my bottom and grab my.
Well, they shouldn't. Tell them not to, if you don't want them to.
Yeah. I don't really want them to, but the thing is, if I walk to a police officer and say that, they're going to think I'm ridiculous. And even though they say, okay, women.
So you think it's an equal problem? You think it's an equal problem? Mohammed, respond to that. Daniel clearly seems to, anyway, think it's an equal problem for men and women.
That's laughable. That's absolutely laughable. I mean, I have seen my wife, my sisters, my mother, my friends being treated effectively like they're pieces of meat. Now, I have had times in my life where people have touched me inappropriately, and I've not been happy about that. but compared to the level that women have, is ludicrous. And on one other point, he was talking about the treatment of black people throughout history, and that would instantaneously mean that if we're going to refer to it, then black people have to be racist or aggressive to other races. I'm black myself, my friend, and being treated in a poor manner doesn't mean I'm going out to treat people in the same manner that my ancestors or whatever have been treated. This sort of matching is not appropriate. I mean, you can't say that. It's not on at all. So don't you dare, and I'm sorry to be so strong and strident about this, but don't you dare say that the treatment of men and women is the same, because it's not.
Mohammed, I'm going to leave it on that point. Thank you very much indeed for making it. Thanks for all of your calls on this really interesting couple of hours.